So let's continue on with part 2 of the friends list loader class creation. Okay, moving on. The next method we need to override is onStartLoading. onStartLoading. And what we need to do there, just remove that super. We're going to do a test to see whether friends is not equal to null. In other words, if there is some data. If there is some data, we're going to do a deliver result, which is a method we just created above in friends. So the data has been received and processed. We're now delivering the results, which is that method that we created in the previous section above. And then here we're going to do another check. We're going to if take content change. And what take content change checks for is to see whether the data has changed when the loader was stopped. So if that's the case, we need to actually get it to reload the data and try again, like we're going to force it to load. So if the data has changed or we haven't got any data, friends is equal to null. Let's do a force load. And force load does just what you think it does. And force load will force, it sort of tells the system, I need you to reload and to go and grab that data from the content provider again. So that's all the code we need for onStartLoading. Usually force load would only be used in the onStartLoading method. You wouldn't normally use that anywhere else. Next we need onStopLoading. So we need to override that. onStopLoading. And what we need to do there is we need to just do a cancel load. So we've got the event back to say that the loader is stopping loading the data. We're going to cancel the load. If that is cool, that's what it means. There's a problem. So we want to cancel the load. We don't want to process it anymore. And again, there could be various reasons why that cancel load, why it stopped. Next one is on reset. So I'm going to select on reset. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to call on stop loading. So reset, and I'll tell you what that means in a minute, but we're on stop loading. So we're going to call that method, which of course you can see above does a cancel load. So basically this is just the functionality and what to do on a reset. So when the data has been reset for whatever reason, we've got to handle that ourselves. So we need to sort of exit gracefully. So first things first, we stop the loading. We tell the process, okay, not to do any more loading. And then we need to close the cursor. So we need to check to see whether the cursor isn't null. When cursor is not equal to null, because obviously if it is null, this following line of code would crash. Close. So it's just a graceful exit. We need to write that code to make sure that's the case. And then the other thing we'll do is in here, we'll set mfriends, because we've closed it, to equal null. And that's so later on, when we're reprocessing again, for example, on start loading, mfriends will be null, and the load will then be forced to start again. Okay, two more methods we need to override. One is on cancelled, which is that one there, on cancelled. So we're going to let the super call get invoked first. Just to be consistent, we'll change that to friends. Just so we're clear what we're doing. So we're cancelling the, basically it's being cancelled essentially. So we're going to call the super to make sure that the super, the code for the on cancelled in the super class is executed correctly. And then we're just going to do a check if mcursor not equal to null, mcursor.close. Okay, and lastly, the method that we need to override is force load, which we've talked about above. I'll override that, force load. We don't actually need to do much here. Force load will be down further, force load, that one. And that's just doing a force load at the super level, executing that code, which we need to do. So technically, I guess we could have left that out, but we're putting it in there just so it's really clear what we're trying to do. So that's it. That's now the friends list loader class all set up. Now you're probably looking at some of that code and thinking, well, that's a lot of code. But the reality is now you've got this sort of boilerplate template. You'll be able to do for all your database code, you'll be able to do something very similar. Or any time you need the loader, a lot of these methods won't change. Obviously, the load in background method will change because needs to change because it's got your the types of data, the URI and so forth that are unique to your application. But a lot of these other things here, it's very generic code that it won't take a lot to change them all. And basically, you've got like I said, a boilerplate now of a loader that you need to be able to add to your class, set up for your class. When I was editing this video, I just noticed a problem I had in some of the code, so I thought I would go back and fix that. And it's a very insidious little thing to find. Now, here's the code here. You might look at that and think, what's wrong with that? And if you look carefully, you'll see that there's the bitwise inclusive OR instead of a logical OR has been put in there. So that should have been two of them. That's the logical OR that we normally use when using a traditional OR. So you can get into difficulties. You'll use the one which actually functions and does something different. So you run into difficulties if you only use one. So make sure, generally you won't be using bitwise inclusive ORs, you'll be just using a logical OR. That's what you'll do if you're just comparing to see whether mfriends is equal to null or mfriends.size equals 0. So that's what the logical OR is. So just a really simple little typo, something to watch out for when you're coding as well. And yeah, I just thought I'd fix that here now, and before we got too much further in the process. I'm going to end the video there. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and set up our friends list fragment.